My mother-in-law hates me. I've been married to my husband for 4 years now, and we have a 6-month-old daughter named Luna. We live with my husband's mother. But it's more like living separately since we have our own house on the same property. Our privacy was relatively well maintained. Or at least it should. My mother-in-law often comes over to our place and complains about various things like, this house has a bad vibe, or the furniture in this house has no taste at all. I thought our life might change when Luna was born, but it didn't change at all. In fact, it feels like she's become even more hostile towards me and Luna. When Luna cries, my mother-in-law says, "What a noisy girl." She's really noisy. I don't like girls like this. My mother-in-law actually wanted a son who could inherit the family name. She doesn't want girls in this house. It would have been a little cuter if it were a boy. Every time I heard my mother-in-law say such things, I couldn't help but worry that Luna might do something. My mother-in-law hardly even looked at Luna's face. Of course, she never held her either. According to my mother-in-law, she says words that deny Luna's existence, such as, "A girl with your blood is just disgusting. I wonder why you gave birth to her. Oh, this child is going to have a hard time being so ugly. It's all your fault." I couldn't stand her abusive words toward my daughter, not just me. So, I lived a life shuttling between my mother's house and my own, suppressing my anger. My name is Emily. I worked as a section chief at the Tokyo headquarters of my uncle's company. I have a brother, and he's the president of the company. By chance, my brother also had a baby who was about the same age as Luna. Because of that, I got along well with my sister-in-law, and we often visited each other's homes and played together. Are you bringing Jennifer with you today too? Yes, if it's with Luna, Jennifer will be in a good mood too. While the child is being quiet, I might as well take this chance to vent to you again. Of course, feel free to tell me everything. I often talk to my sister-in-law about my mother-in-law. Or rather, I vented to her. I met my husband through my uncle's introduction. My husband was working as a salesperson at my uncle's company's Kentucky branch. He was very diligent, and my brother appreciated his work, which led to his transfer to the New York headquarters. My husband's family was in New York, so this move was also greatly welcomed by his mother. Just take this opportunity to have a meal together as a couple. He's a good guy. My uncle suggested, and that's how my relationship with my husband started. My husband was an only child and the heir to the family. His mother doted on him, and even now, she would eagerly welcome him home, hugging him and saying things like, "Welcome back, and I cooked your favorite beans," whenever he visited. Due to her intense love for her son, my mother-in-law deeply despised me and constantly spread rumors about me, accusing me of being a manipulative woman who had entrapped her son. Her mistreatment of me was relentless. I used to work when we got married, so I had a hectic life where every minute counted. When I got home, I'd often flop down on the sofa, thinking, I've made it through another day. Those moments were incredibly satisfying. However, my mother-in-law would occasionally enter our home uninvited, catching me off guard. "Emily, what are you doing?" "My, how improper," she would scold. I would hurriedly jump up and apologize, saying, "I'm sorry. I had a tough day at work, and when I got home, I just let my guard down. I had no idea you were here." My mother-in-law would respond, "Your work isn't finished yet. Please clean the main house and prepare dinner. It's our son's birthday today, so be sure to buy a fruit set he likes." She had shifted all household responsibilities, including those in the main house, onto me. About a year later, I started feeling unwell quite often. My husband was concerned and told me, "You should rest a bit." However, my mother-in-law didn't like that he was showing me kindness. During this time, I had been visiting the gynecologist due to my health issues, as I had a suspicion about what might be causing them. As it turned out, my suspicion was correct. I was overjoyed and immediately shared the news with my husband. Today, when I went to the obstetrician, they told me I'm pregnant. "Our baby!" I exclaimed. "Really? That's amazing! I'm so happy! I'm going to be a father!" My husband was overjoyed. Seeing the happiness on my husband's face made me feel full of joy too. Our baby was growing healthy, and my belly was getting bigger and bigger. Up we go! I even found myself giving a little cheer when getting up from a chair. My large belly was a sign of our lively child. I continued working until the very last moment, and then I decided to take maternity and parental leave. Fortunately, my company had a supportive environment for this, and my colleagues sent me off with a big bouquet and cute baby clothes. Baby clothes already? You're jumping the gun, but thank you, everyone. I'll be taking a break for a while, but I'll come back in good spirits, so please keep my seat warm. Of course! We'll be waiting for you. Everyone smiled as they bid me farewell. However, when I returned home carrying the bouquet, my mother-in-law was standing there with a stern expression. Emily, you're quitting your job from today, right? Actually, Mother, I'm not quitting. I'm taking maternity and parental leave. I'll be back after my vacation. Poof. You're just being careless again. Well, fine. Make sure to do the housework properly during your break. With that big belly of yours, it's bound to be noisy having your child around. My mother-in-law was not pleased with my pregnancy. She found it distasteful that her son had fathered a child with another woman. And the fact that it was a girl added to her discontent. This child wouldn't be an heir, and to her, it was just an inconvenience. Despite all this, our daughter was born healthy and strong. My husband was moved to tears. And I felt an overwhelming sense of joy and excitement, knowing that something more precious than my own life had come into this world. Hey, what should we name her? Yeah, I've been giving it a lot of thought. How about Luna? Hoping she'll grow up to be as beautiful as the moon. Luna! That's a lovely name. Luna, you have Mommy and Daddy here. During my hospital stay, my husband made time to come and hold Luna immediately. It was truly a happy family time. Looking back, those 3 days in the hospital might have been the happiest moments of my life. When we returned home, my mother-in-law was there. I was immediately brought back to reality. Upon seeing Luna's face, my mother-in-law remarked, "She's an ugly child. She doesn't look anything like my son. I wonder if this child is really his? Are you deceiving him and having children with someone else?" She said such cruel things. My husband, who was present, got angry and said, "What are you saying, Mom?" My mother-in-law sulked and left the room. I think that was the only time my mother-in-law actually looked at Luna's face, both before and after this incident. Afterward, she stopped even bothering to look at Luna's face. Even after I was discharged from the hospital, I was still made to do the housework in the main house. I set up a cool bedroom for Luna to sleep in. But if I took my eyes off her for a moment, my mother-in-law would be there. "What are you doing?" There was gauze on Luna's face. I rushed over in surprise and removed the gauze. Why would you put gauze on the face of a newborn like this? She could suffocate. Oh, it's just a developmental test. Since she's your child, I thought maybe she's a bit slow in her development, so I decided to experiment. She can't even remove the gauze by herself yet. She really is slow, such a silly child. That's obvious, isn't it? She's only just been born. What if something happened? Well, that would be her fate, wouldn't it? My mother-in-law laughed and walked away. My mother-in-law's mistreatment of Luna was terrible. She would leave Luna lying on her stomach, even though Luna couldn't turn over properly yet, and she would intentionally place small objects around Luna, who had just started putting things in her mouth. However, my mother-in-law showed no remorse whatsoever. Actually, wouldn't it be easier for you to get a divorce if this child wasn't around? What are you talking about? I have no intention of divorcing. Well, then, hurry up and have a boy. A boy who looks like our son, unlike this ugly one. After all, this ugly one probably isn't our son's child anyway. I was reaching my boiling point. I could endure the mistreatment directed at me, but to subject innocent Luna to such treatment. How many times do I have to tell you? This child is mine and my husband's. If you can't trust me, then go ahead and do a DNA test or whatever you want. But don't harm this child. It's cowardly and despicable to lay a hand on this as your grandchild. I don't consider her my grandchild. She's just a noisy child. Just like you. Our son was never a crybaby when he was little. If she were our son's child, she wouldn't be crying all the time. There was no point in arguing any further. I needed to create an environment where my mother-in-law and Luna couldn't interact physically to avoid any danger. With that in mind, I rarely brought Luna to the main house, and when I had no choice but to bring her, I carried her on my back to ensure she was never separated from me. Luna was about to turn 1 year old. I also wanted to return to work, so I had been making arrangements to enroll Luna in daycare. Today was the trial daycare day. Luna had been at daycare since the morning. It was the first time in a while that I had been separated from my own child. I wonder what it is, but it feels incredibly lonely. It was as if a gaping hole had opened up inside me. As if to distract myself from that loneliness, I focused on housework during that time, trying to finish cleaning and laundry in the main house. Ha! I can't see my mother-in-law anywhere. Did she go somewhere? Well, if she's out, it means I won't be subjected to her harassment, so my stress might be reduced. After finishing the chores in the main house, I picked up Luna from daycare and brought her home. Despite it being her first day at daycare, she seemed to be spending it with a smile. The daycare staff assured me, Luna will be just fine. You can enroll her in daycare anytime. I felt relieved. Luna must have been somewhat tired as well. Right after returning from daycare, she quickly fell asleep with a gentle snore. I returned home and laid Luna down in the cool, air-conditioned bedroom. Just then, my mother-in-law, who was covered in sweat, came back. You went out, didn't you? Well, yes. Did you finish cleaning and laundry? Yes, I finished. The highest temperature for today is supposed to go over 104 degrees Fahrenheit, isn't it? Yes, it's quite hot lately, and air conditioning is essential. I've also cooled down the main house, so it should be fine. I wonder how hot it gets inside a coin locker on such a scorching day. Suddenly, my mother-in-law brought up such a topic. I didn't understand what she meant, but I responded, well, since there's no airflow, it might feel close to 122 degrees Fahrenheit, don't you think? It must be sweltering, my mother-in-law chuckled. I felt an inexplicable fear from my mother-in-law's attitude. Then she uttered something horrifying. Luna was crying so loudly, terribly noisy, so I put her in a coin locker at the station. Isn't she as irritating as that? You can hear everything even from the main house. It could become a nuisance to the neighbors, so I thought she needed to be punished. What? You put Luna in there? She must be quite hot by now, don't you think? It's all because she's your child. Such a poor thing. I hope she's not dead already. I think I mentioned this before, but Luna started daycare today, and she just came back. She's fast asleep, in the bedroom. My mother-in-law was taken aback. And she rushed into the bedroom. There, she found the sight of a baby sleeping soundly in the cool room. Her once amused face began to stiffen. Wait a moment. Then who is that child? Ha! My mother-in-law started to panic. Above all, I understood that my mother-in-law's words about putting a baby in a coin locker on such a hot day were true. I had to hurry to help, so I rushed out of the house. My mother-in-law, in a state of shock, followed me. This was a serious incident that would have a significant impact on my mother-in-law's future life. She quickly arrived at the coin locker. My mother-in-law, with trembling hands, unlocked the door, and there was indeed a baby inside. She was drenched in sweat and might be suffering from dehydration. I felt an urgent need to take the child to the hospital. What? She's alive? I worried for nothing. I thought that ugly child of yours would be gone, and you two would get divorced. I picked up the baby immediately to check her breathing. She was breathing, but her heart seemed to be beating faster than usual. Please don't say anything unnecessary and call an ambulance right away. However, there was no response. It seemed that my mother-in-law had fled. She must have thought that staying here any longer would lead to trouble. I felt genuine hatred for my mother-in-law, who had attempted to kill Luna. And I was determined never to forgive her for what she had done to an innocent baby. Before long, the baby was taken by ambulance, received prompt medical attention, and recovered her health. She was on the brink of dehydration. Babies are susceptible to dehydration, so please be extra careful with her, the nurse informed me. When the nurse asked me if the baby had a health record, I realized, oh, that's true. I'll contact the mother. So, I made a call to the baby's mom. Meanwhile, the baby was peacefully sleeping in the bed. I couldn't help but wonder if this baby was indeed Luna. Just the thought sent shivers down my spine. How could someone do something so terrible? My anger towards my mother-in-law resurfaced, simmering beneath the surface. Upon returning home, I found the baby's mother waiting. Jennifer! She hugged her child, calling her, and broke down in tears as if her knees had given way. I apologized. I'm so sorry. I let my guard down for a moment. No, it's okay. I left Jennifer with you without even asking for your schedule. I feel responsible too. Please, Emily, lift your head. You've done nothing wrong. As I raised my head, I saw that the baby's mother was my sister-in-law. She also had a baby of similar age. She explained that, as the wife of the CEO, she often had to attend events as a representative, and that day she had left Jennifer with me just for a few hours. My sister-in-law and I had been very close, often exchanging advice and sharing our parenting concerns. Jennifer had grown fond of me, as well. That day happened to be Jennifer's first day at daycare, so I gladly agreed to look after her. Since nothing serious happened, let's stop apologizing, my sister-in-law comforted me. I tried to find my mother-in-law, but she was nowhere to be found. I tried contacting several acquaintances, including the main house, but it seemed like she was nowhere to be found. It seemed like she had no intention of responding to my messages. I asked my husband to send a message for his mother, saying, I want to divorce Emily. Please come back, I need to talk to you. Of course, I had no intention of actually divorcing him. It was all a ruse to get my mother-in-law to return. My mother-in-law had fallen right into the trap. 2 days later, she came back home. I greeted her, saying, welcome back. Oh, you're still here? I thought you were divorcing my son, she replied. Oh, that was just a lie. What? She tried to leave again, but I stopped her. I have good news. The baby is doing well. Oh, really? I didn't know. Do you know who that baby is? She's my brother's daughter. My mother-in-law paused for a moment. And then she retorted, so what, in a defiant manner. My brother is the representative director of our company, you know? Your beloved son's company, I emphasized. My mother-in-law's face turned pale. Where is my son? Well, I think he's probably at my brother's place, apologizing. She imagined her precious son, apologizing, and her anger exploded. He has nothing to do with that child, she shouted. You closed the door to your son's career. My brother held your son in high regard. He was considering a promotion to section chief by the end of this year. But now, due to this incident, my brother is furious. He can't give a job to someone who doesn't even understand his own mother. No, I thought that baby was Luna. My mother-in-law took a few steps back. Mother-in-law, you hardly ever look directly at Luna's face. It's understandable that you could mistake her for another baby. My sister-in-law wasn't upset about it, but my brother is very angry. What will happen to my son? Even in this situation, my mother-in-law's mind was preoccupied with her son. He'll probably be fired. I then asked my mother-in-law, where have you been all this time? I stayed with my friends until things cooled down. But that baby is fine now, right? She just sweated a little. I put her in the locker to help her metabolism. Maybe she'll become a healthy child because of it? My mother-in-law continued to justify her actions, saying, I can't believe they would fire my son over something like that. I'm rejecting that company. It's a place where my son's talents can't shine. A man came out of the adjacent room. It was my brother. Is that so? You rejected it? Emily, you deceived me. Mother-in-law completely changed her attitude from earlier and lowered her head to my older brother. Oh, my son has always been taken care of by you. When my mother-in-law started to apologize, my brother interjected, saying, I've heard everything. Mother-in-law was trying to justify herself. It's not like that. I really thought it was Luna, and it was just a mistake. I think it's something you shouldn't do to any baby. Mother-in-law kept apologizing. You're not apologizing to my daughter, you're just apologizing for my title. I've heard that you've treated my sister pretty badly too. What's your problem? Mother-in-law became flustered and looked down. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. So please, spare my son from being fired. He's working hard, but his wife didn't understand. Mother-in-law must have been glaring at me. My older brother didn't let that slide. My sister is a very understanding person. She's also a talented manager at work. It seemed like something inside mother-in-law snapped. Seriously, it's all because of you. She said, pointing at me. Well, I've never really liked this marriage from the start. Why did my son marry someone like you? He was deceived by this woman. And what's this about leaving a baby in the locker? Do you have any evidence to back up such a claim? What kind of person is this? Still saying such things. The locker I happened to open just happened to have a baby inside. And that baby just happened to be your brother's child. That's all there is to it, isn't it? My son has absolutely nothing to do with this. Bringing him into this situation is just as bad on your part as it is on your brother's. It's quite an unreasonable argument, but my mother-in-law's face turned beet red, and she spoke rapidly like a machine gun. You putting a baby in the coin locker was captured clearly on the security camera. With that statement, my mother-in-law's confidence vanished, and she surrendered completely. The police will be here soon. The police? My mother-in-law had never thought that her actions would lead to a police investigation. She panicked. Why the police? Why, you ask? Taking a child away without permission and leaving them behind are both serious crimes. You need to face the consequences. Are you saying it's okay if I get arrested? Wait, where's my son? Where is he? My husband slowly came out of the room. Mom, I can't support you anymore. It's just not right. It's terrible. I did it for your sake. In the end, I lost my position and trust at my company. What do you mean it was for my sake? If it were for my sake, you should have been able to love Luna, right? Both Emily and Luna are my family. You shouldn't have done anything to hurt my family, right? Mom, please give up and face your mistakes. Return to being your old self. Just then, the police arrived, and my mother-in-law was taken away while sobbing. Our home after my mother-in-law was taken away. My husband crying uncontrollably. And my brother holding his head in his hands. Despite all this, Luna and Jennifer were peacefully sleeping. Big brother, I'm truly sorry for this whole ordeal. Even though it was mother-in-law who did it, I'm deeply sorry that Jennifer, who had nothing to do with it, had to go through such a scary experience. My brother placed his hand on my shoulder. It's okay now. Jennifer is fine, and my wife isn't blaming you at all. What about my husband's job? We can't promote him to manager, but we won't fire him. He's a capable and excellent employee. Another opportunity for promotion will come. My husband and I apologize to my brother. But Luna and Jennifer really look like twins, don't they? Both Luna and Jennifer, sleeping peacefully, were in the same position and facing the same direction. They were incredibly cute. I gently stroked both of their heads. I'm sorry for putting you through so much pain. How about moving from here as an opportunity, Emily? Ha! I can't bear to stay with my mom any longer. Even if it's a small apartment, let's move out. I was grateful that my husband had made that decision. Thank you. Tears welled up in my eyes out of happiness. We moved to a small apartment and decided to start our lives over from scratch. Luna happily went to daycare. And my husband and I worked hard every day, dreaming of having our own home. My mother-in-law was released from custody and seemed to have returned to that house, but we never heard from her again. It seems like she was thoroughly questioned by the police. We started a new life as a family of 3. Or rather, 4. I was pregnant with a new life inside me. Interestingly, my brother's wife was also expecting. And our due dates were the same. We laughed about how strange things could happen. Are you the reserved guest I was expecting? I have something important to discuss with you. Would you mind sparing a moment? As I was about to enter the restaurant, a woman in a chef's attire, wearing a tense expression, approached me. Intrigued, I wondered what she wanted to confirm regarding my meal. However, when I listened to her, I was hit with a shocking revelation that made me go pale. My name is Emily Thompson, 31 years old, working in the advertising industry. I work diligently to create better advertisements, and although it's a challenging job, it's incredibly rewarding. My husband, John, whom I met through work, is a year older than me, and we've been married for a year. Being a dual-income household, we efficiently share our household chores and help each other manage our lives. Initially, our interactions were solely work-related, but as time went by, we started having more personal conversations and grew closer. I realized that we shared similar interests and values, and I started developing feelings for him. Fearing that we might not see each other often after our collaborative project was coming to an end, I mustered the courage and confessed my feelings to him. Despite my nervousness, he accepted my feelings, and we started dating. After a year, he proposed, and we got married. Before marriage, John revealed that he had been previously married and was divorced. They were married for about a year, had no children, and mutually decided to part ways due to differing values. It seemed like John regretted not being able to make his previous marriage work. He appeared a bit reserved when it came to love, probably because of his past experience, but I understood. As long as there were no lingering issues, I didn't mind his past. It wasn't about wanting happiness for marriage but wanting to live my life alongside John, so I accepted the fact that John was divorced and went ahead with the wedding. Our married life was filled with happiness, but slowly, the real implications of John being divorced began to unravel. After our wedding, we moved to an apartment close to our workplaces, and John's parents live nearby, and we get along well. Our married life has been smoother than I anticipated. Initially, I had concerns about living so close to my in-laws, fearing potential conflicts, but they were always kind to me. Given our work schedules, John and I hardly have time during the weekdays, but we make the most of our weekends. Living with my husband, due to both of us working, we don't get much leisure time together on weekdays, except for brief conversations at dinner. Therefore, we spend a lot of time together on weekends. We both enjoy eating and often cook dishes we want to try at home. Ideally, dining out would be great, but I have an allergy to fruits from the rosacea family, so I can't casually eat out. Even when I think a dish doesn't contain these fruits, they might be used as a hidden ingredient, making it tedious to constantly check with restaurants. Even a slight touch causes my skin to turn red and swell. I feel bad asking about ingredients at restaurants and have developed an aversion to dining out due to this. I developed this allergy as an adult, and initially, I was taken aback since I hadn't expected it. I recall a time when I ate a lot of strawberries, and my mouth swelled up, making it difficult to breathe. I used to eat fruits frequently, and after getting tested at the hospital, I was devastated to find out about my rosacea fruit allergy. Discovering that I could no longer eat favorites like strawberries, apples, pears, and peaches saddened me. I'd had reactions after eating food I thought was safe, only to find out they contain allergens, which further discouraged me from dining out. This made me apprehensive about buying ready-made meals or snacks, adding a bit of stress to my life. Perhaps due to the initial severe allergic reaction and the sadness of not being able to eat my favorite fruits, I became overly cautious about checking ingredients during meals with my husband. While we were dating, my constant checks made me feel apologetic. However, I can't feel at ease without thorough confirmation, and without it, I can't fully enjoy meals. Still, we love eating. My husband and I would select ingredients and enjoy cooking together, a routine that helped reduce my excessive worries. Fortunately, both my husband and his parents understood my allergies, easing the mental burden I felt after getting married, especially my mother-in-law, who had a deep understanding of allergies due to her father's severe wheat allergy. Wheat is commonly used in many products and even a little bit affected him. Allergies can be lethal, so we were very careful. She explained that she researched my allergy and always ensured that meals were safe for me when we dined at her place or went out. She took extra precautions, allowing me to enjoy meals without worries. You shouldn't have to be scared during meals. I'll make sure everything is safe for you, she told me, which almost moved me to tears. I have a great relationship with my in-laws, especially my mother-in-law, who treats me like her own daughter. We'd often go out together, and my husband and his parents are wonderful people. The concerns I initially had about my allergies have vanished. One day, a project I proposed at work was successful, earning me a promotion, which I excitedly shared with my family. They were all thrilled, especially my mother-in-law. While spending time with her, she invited me to celebrate at an upscale restaurant. That's a very fancy place, isn't it? I can't let you do that, I hesitated. The restaurant was in a luxurious hotel nearby, which I had always dreamt of visiting since my student days. However, it was truly upscale, and I felt it was too extravagant even for a celebration. You don't have to hold back. This is such a joyous occasion. Let me treat you, she insisted, genuinely happy about my promotion. Her sentiment warmed my heart, but I had reservations. I remembered visiting the restaurant's website before my allergy developed and dreaming of tasting their fruit-filled tarts someday. The restaurant often uses fruits from the rosacea family, while I appreciate my mother-in-law's kindness besides the issue of the restaurant being upscale. I'm hesitant because they frequently use fruits from the rosacea family, to which I'm allergic. Whenever I dined out with my mother-in-law in the past, we informed the restaurant of my allergy beforehand, but each time I felt guilty asking them to accommodate my dietary restrictions. So, we often chose restaurants that seldom use my allergenic foods. I worry that even if we inform this restaurant about my allergy, it might inconvenience them due to their frequent use of fruits. Of course, dishes without these fruits are safe for me, and I'm tempted to try them. However, considering the kitchen likely processes these fruits as well, the risk scares me. In the end, I decided to decline the offer because of my concerns about an allergic reaction. Still, my mother-in-law was keen on the idea. I'll inform them about the allergy when I make the reservation. Don't worry, I also have a connection there, so they'll take good care of us. I was surprised to hear that she had a connection to the restaurant, given that neither she nor my husband had ever mentioned it. However, I assumed it wasn't something she boasted about. Considering my mother-in-law's enthusiasm and my genuine interest in the restaurant's cuisine, we decided to have lunch there together. Given that it was a suggestion from my mother-in-law, who had always been considerate of my allergies, I felt relieved, thinking there was nothing for me to worry about. When I told my husband about this, he was surprised to hear that his mother had connections at the restaurant. He'd also mentioned that the restaurant sometimes serves fruit, and he appreciated their consideration for allergies. When I shared with my husband that my mother-in-law had informed the restaurant about my allergies during the reservation, and that they would take precautions, he seemed relieved. It's a celebration of your promotion, right? Make sure to enjoy yourself, he said with a laugh. Initially, I declined because of my allergies, but I had always admired the restaurant, so I was excited about dining there on the day I had been eagerly waiting for. Since it was a weekday, I took the half day off after finishing my morning work. I planned to head straight to the restaurant. Being a high-end place, I chose a more formal outfit than usual and paid extra attention to my appearance. When going to work, colleagues noticed my attire and asked about my plans. When I told them about the meal, they wished me a good time before I left the office excitedly. As I entered the hotel entrance, my mother-in-law was already there. The two of us headed to the restaurant on the first floor, and since we had a reservation, we were immediately escorted to our table. Our reservation was for 1 p.m., but due to the busy lunchtime, we were informed that the serving might be a bit delayed. Understanding the popularity of the high-end restaurant, I decided to order just drinks for the time being and wait patiently. Having already finished work and being encouraged by my mother-in-law, I ordered champagne. We enjoyed our conversation while waiting for our meal. Though I've had champagne before, the one I had that day tasted the best. Feeling the effects of the alcohol and the anticipation of dining at a restaurant I had longed for, I was in high spirits. From the dishes at the neighboring tables, I could tell the food looked delicious, and I eagerly awaited our meal. Suddenly, my phone rang from inside my bag. Realizing I hadn't turned it off during my meal with my mother-in-law, I tried to shut it off. Seeing the incoming call was from work, I sobered up immediately, worried that there might be a problem. I excused myself from my mother-in-law and stepped out of the restaurant to take the call, ensuring no one was around in case of sensitive information. The call was regarding a document I had submitted earlier that day. My colleague urgently needed clarification. Relieved that it wasn't because of an error on my part, I answered their questions and wrapped up the call in about 5 minutes. As I was about to turn off my phone to go back and enjoy my meal, an unfamiliar woman approached me. "Excuse me, you're the customer who made a reservation for today's meal at the restaurant, right?" The woman was dressed as a chef, presumably from the restaurant's kitchen. She looked rushed and a bit out of breath with a concerned expression. I wondered why she would come out during such a busy time. I was puzzled, but when she said she needed to confirm something, I answered her questions. Her face went pale, and she urgently told me to leave the hotel immediately. "It's dangerous to go back to the restaurant now. Please leave the hotel and ensure your safety immediately." Suspicious of the woman's intense demeanor, I asked for clarification. Once I grasped the situation, I felt the blood drain from my face. I quickly hopped into a taxi waiting in front of the hotel and headed home. That evening, my mother-in-law called. When I picked up, she was furious about me leaving her at the hotel and returning home without saying anything, causing embarrassment. Since she had reserved a special course, you had everything set up to celebrate, and you just leave without a word. Don't you know basic manners? What kind of upbringing did you have? She was angry in a way I had never seen from my mother-in-law before, and she started to berate me. I had always thought of my mother-in-law as a kind and gentle person, but there was no trace of that now. I believed that the kind mother-in-law I had known would be upset if I left without saying anything, would also be concerned about whether something had happened to me. However, she was furiously yelling with such intensity that I began to believe the rumors about her were true. As I remained silent, she continued to berate me further, complaining even about my parents and how they raised me. "You've been silent this whole time. Don't you realize you've done something wrong? You're not fit to be my son's wife." After a long tirade, she finally seemed to calm down a bit. I then quietly posed a question to her. "You told me that you informed the restaurant about my allergies when you made the reservation today, and I could relax, right? But the restaurant wasn't aware of my allergies, so what happened? In fact, the meal today had ingredients that I was allergic to, not only in the dessert but also in the main courses. The allergenic ingredients were used in marinades and sauces, which weren't apparent from just looking." The woman who approached me earlier had taken the reservation call from my mother-in-law, and she said that no mention of my allergies had been made. However, she noticed the allergy badge on my bag and came to check just in case. Being the chef responsible for our meal that day, she immediately noticed the inclusion of the allergenic ingredients. If she hadn't informed me, I would have unknowingly consumed the food with allergens, which would have resulted in a severe allergic reaction. Initially, I doubted that my mother-in-law would purposely make me consume allergens, but considering the woman took time out of her busy schedule to inform me, I quickly believed her. Furthermore, this woman knew about my mother-in-law's true nature, and she deduced my situation, advising me to leave immediately and ensure I went somewhere my mother-in-law would follow. The reason she knew my mother-in-law was that she was my husband's ex-wife, now working under her maiden name, Kate Young. Seeing me with my mother-in-law, she realized I was the new wife and decided to help me out. She assumed I was the new wife because she believed that my mother-in-law wouldn't have female friends, especially someone of a similar age, after getting married to my husband. The ex-wife lived with his parents and was subjected to significant mistreatment by my mother-in-law before they married. She, like me, thought the mother-in-law was gentle and kind, which left her quite baffled once they started living together. When my husband or father-in-law wasn't around, the ex-wife faced continuous criticism for her housework and was always subjected to snide remarks. Being a full-time housewife, she had no escape despite her culinary skills honed from attending a professional cooking school. The mother-in-law still found faults with her dishes, even discarding them at times. She considered discussing this with her husband. But the mother-in-law was adept at concealing her true nature, especially around him. Feeling her complaints would fall on deaf ears, the ex-wife aimed to gather evidence. However, as she had recently become a full-time housewife, she lacked funds and was almost constantly under the watchful eye of the mother-in-law. Unable to gather proof and without anyone to confide in, she felt trapped in this life, so she fled in the form of a divorce. Despite never having worked before, she utilized her culinary license to seek employment and was lucky to land a job at the restaurant. She worked diligently and over time, the memories of her mistreatment faded, and she began to enjoy her work. After a few years, as she matured into a full-fledged chef, for some reason, my mother-in-law discovered she worked there and started frequenting the restaurant. Upon realizing her ex-daughter-in-law was there, she discreetly threatened her for discounts while she declined absurd demands. Past traumas influenced her to yield to some, and the connection my mother-in-law spoke of referred to the ex-wife. When I questioned why she hadn't communicated my allergies to the restaurant, my mother-in-law feigned ignorance. "I knew about your allergies, so I must have told them. Maybe it's the staff's oversight." She countered defensively, placing the blame on the restaurant staff. Given that the reservation call was handled by the ex-wife, it's probable that my mother-in-law deliberately didn't mention the allergies, intending to pin the blame on the restaurant. However, I was already onto her game, considering the restaurant's stringent guidelines on allergies. If informed, they'd have accommodated my dietary needs. Moreover, they record calls for dispute resolutions, so it would be easy to verify who was at fault. When confronted with this, my mother-in-law, not anticipating recorded evidence, fell silent. I pressed on. "You've always been cautious about my allergies. Why did you not mention them this time?" Until now, my mother-in-law was well aware of the dangers of allergies and always showed concern, so I never imagined she'd do something like this. She knew that by doing this, it wouldn't end well for me, given that we had a good relationship until now. I was curious why she acted this way and sought an explanation. After a brief silence, she shouted defiantly, "I despise you. You outshine me. You deserve some pain." She was envious since I received praise at work and was more liked in the neighborhood than her. She arrogantly claimed that even if I spoke out, no one would believe me. If it weren't for this incident, I wouldn't have believed she was capable of such actions. Thus, I had collected evidence to reveal her true nature and confronted her with it. Everyone would believe me. My parents and my husband, John, are here, listening to everything. Plus, this conversation is being recorded. Everyone present had heard her berate me and her intentions to purposely expose me to allergens. In fact, after leaving the restaurant, I immediately went to my parents' house and had John join us. I had informed them of the situation, and we were discussing our next steps when she called. So, I swiftly switched the call to speaker and started recording it for evidence. As a result, we had her incriminating statements on tape. She was taken aback by my revelation and asked in a shaky voice, "Wait, is John there with you?" She never expected her son to find out and asked in a trembling voice. In response, her son, who had been silent and emotionless, gathering evidence, spoke up. "I heard everything. I can't believe you do something like this, Mom," he said in a suppressed angry tone. She hastily began making excuses. "It wasn't like that. I didn't mean." Her desperate attempt seemed insincere, especially after her earlier outburst. His anger was evident as he shouted, not only towards Kate but also towards Emily. "I don't even want to think of you as my mother anymore. We're cutting ties." Given the true nature of the mother he had trusted, John was beyond furious. He then declared his estrangement from her, ignoring her cries. Furthermore, my parents said that they would sue her for attempted murder, and John cut off the call, disregarding her voice. Later, when John informed his father about the incident, he was furious and suggested divorce, eventually throwing her out of the house. With no relatives to rely on, no income, and being a housewife, she clung desperately, pleading and crying. Her husband, feeling a final bit of pity, put her in a basic apartment, paid the first month's rent, and told her to find work so she could support herself. But having been a housewife, she seemed to lack the drive to work, and, for some reason, clung to both John and me. She barged into our house demanding money, but we drove her away, telling her to earn it herself, especially John, who was extremely stern, ensuring she wouldn't approach our house again. Later on, rumors suggested she started working at a nearby supermarket, but she seemed quite disheveled. Given her nasty attitude, she had no one to rely on and seemed to be struggling on her own. I hope she continues to work hard, both for her own expenses and to pay us the compensation. And I want her to stay out of our lives. As for why she did what she did, it seemed she was jealous of me and wanted to see me suffer. John's ex-wife had moved in after graduating from a vocational school and became a housewife. She was submissive, obeyed her mother-in-law, and had a quiet nature due to her unpleasant character, which made her disliked by women and her enjoyment in bullying those weaker than herself. She used to take out her stress on John's ex-wife. However, I am independent, working, and getting promotions. I had a higher social status than her and was well regarded in our neighborhood. Initially, she liked me, thinking I was a competent daughter-in-law, but she gradually grew jealous. Being unable to bully me, she wished I'd be in a position where I'd become incompetent, wanting to look down on me. After the explosive call when John and his father confronted her, she confessed everything, leading to their declaration of cutting ties with her. Later, John apologized to his ex-wife for not noticing the bullying. At that time, he was new at his job and deeply trusted his mother, which blinded him to her behavior. Still, he felt he should have noticed and was regretful. His ex-wife assured him she was over it. She's dating someone now, and their conversation ended on a peaceful note. John felt relieved. Knowing she was genuinely happy thanks to her help, I became friends with John's ex-wife. She's also career-oriented, and we get along well. Although she's his ex-wife, there's nothing concerning regarding their relationship, and I'm glad to have a friend close in age. After settling matters with the mother-in-law, John and his father threw me a promotion party. With the celebration from the two of them, I felt happy and determined to continue working hard without worrying about my— Wait a minute, you're the one from that video. What? What video? I have no idea what you're talking about. If this is a prank, just go away. I'm not in the mood for it. Oh, come on! The video of you changing your clothes in the bathroom. It's been making the rounds online. Everyone's been talking about it now. Wow, you still got it, Grandma! Hello, I'm Emma, and let me share with you about the time I miraculously dodged a bullet thanks to my mother-in-law Linda inadvertently catching it with her own actions and decisions. It was during our latest family trip. We would often have these outings that became a treasured tradition in our family since they served as a reminder to reconnect and bridge the gaps that naturally formed due to our busy separate lives. While we weren't as close-knit as some families, these trips offered a chance to create memories together, strengthen our bonds, and foster a sense of unity. But truth be told, my husband Joshua and I weren't exactly jumping with excitement. You see, spending time with Joshua's mother Linda wasn't always the most joyous of experiences. She had a knack for finding ways to dampen the mood to get things her way, which made the idea of family bonding slightly daunting. Guess what, everyone? It's almost time for our family trip. Her eyes sparkled with excitement, but Joshua and I exchanged knowing glances, unable to hide our mixed feelings. We were subtly showing signs that weren't as eager to partake in it anymore, but my mother-in-law seemed to be determined in upholding the tradition. Ah, the tradition continues. You know, Mom, I've always suspected that your mom purposefully created this tradition just to annoy us every now and then. We chuckled at Joshua's joke, but there was a hint of truth behind his words. The family outings had become a peculiar blend of joy, frustration, and undeniable entertainment. As we sat down to discuss our plans, I couldn't help but express my concerns to Joshua. I know we should be excited about the trip, but you know how Linda can be. I hope this time she'll act differently, but I can't help feeling a bit weary. I know, Emma, we've had our fair share of challenging moments with her, but perhaps this trip can be an opportunity for us to create some positive memories together. Let's go into it with an open mind and try to make the best of it, okay? But before we could embark on our grand adventure, there was a crucial task at hand: finding the perfect accommodation for us. The decision to have separate accommodation from my mother-in-law was not only to ensure personal space, but also to provide a buffer for our own sanity. We hoped that having our own room would allow us to recharge, regroup, and indulge in our own interests without feeling suffocated. Hours turned to days as we scoured numerous websites. Diligently searching for the ideal Airbnb, our requirements were clear: a place that complements the tranquility of the coastal settings and offers breathtaking views and modern amenities. Finally, amidst our meticulous research, we stumbled upon a gem: Sunset Serenity. Josh, I think I found the ideal place for us on our family trip. It's called Sunset Haven, and it looks absolutely incredible. You won't believe the stunning photos. Show me! We huddled together and checked the Airbnb listing. It was kind of pricey, but with everything it can offer, it seemed to be reasonably priced. With our hearts set on Sunset Haven, we eagerly made the book, securing the knowledge that this accommodation would be the perfect background for our family adventure. As days ticked by, our conversations were filled with dreams of sandcastles, delicious seafood feasts, and laughter shared beneath the night sky. Finally, the day of our departure arrived. The car was packed to the brim with suitcases and beach gear. As we stepped foot into the carefully selected and stunning Airbnb, my mother-in-law Linda accompanied us and looked around the place. Wow, what a stunning place! Excellent choice! I know, right? Joshua and I spent days finding the perfect place, and here it is. Yeah, you know what, dear? I think I'll be staying here instead. It's just too appealing to resist. Her tone was carrying an air of entitlement as usual. Joshua and I were surprised and caught off guard by Linda's sudden declaration. Mom, I don't understand. You have your own booking. Why would you want to take ours? What about your own room? Well, dear, this place is much more suited for me. Look how luxurious it is. You two can manage with the other one. Now hurry along. But Linda, we specifically chose our Airbnb because it suited our preferences. We were really looking forward to staying here. Mom, can we stick to our original arrangements? Emma booked this Airbnb for us. It wouldn't be fair to change plans now. Joshua, I thought we are a family. I thought you cared about your mother's comfort. I'm just feeling weak and fragile these days, and I need somewhere comfortable to rest. There it is, her talent of emotionally manipulating her own son. And after everything I've done for you since you were little, Joshua, can't you do this one thing for your dear old mother? How could you sleep at night knowing that you refused your mother's wishes? It was a tactic Linda had employed countless times before appealing to his sympathy and making him question his choices. All right, fine. Mother, I guess we can stay in the room you originally booked just this one time, okay? Then no more. We didn't want to rock the boat or spoil the atmosphere because it was impossible to win against her, and we know we will just be wasting our breath if we try to fight it. So, we reluctantly agreed to vacate our Airbnb and relocate to Linda's original room. As we entered the room, a wave of disappointment washed over us. It was clear that Linda had intentionally chosen a less than comfortable option, knowing full well that she would be forcing us to vacate it later. The room was crammed with dated furniture and musty utter that permitted the air. The bed sagged in the middle and the worn-out mattresses offered little support. The bathroom was small and outdated, with a leaky faucet and a shower that barely produced a trickle of water. It's so different from the Airbnb we had initially booked, and the realization sank in that we were in for an uncomfortable stay. I'm not going to lie, I think my mother booked this room just to inconvenience us. This might be the worst reviewed room there is in the app. You think I wouldn't put it past her? She's always found ways to assert control and make everything about herself. We spent the first night tossing and turning on the lumpy mattress, the springs creaking with every movement. We already knew that the lack of good sleep will take its toll and leave us groggy and irritable the next morning. Throughout our stay, we encountered numerous inconveniences. The unreliable Wi-Fi connection made it challenging to stay connected with the outside world, and the constant noise from neighboring rooms disrupted any chance of peace and quiet. Little did we know that our uncomfortable compromises would soon pale in comparison to the challenges my mother-in-law is yet to experience. The morning after the unexpected room switcheroo, we were determined to make the most out of our family vacation. The day unfolded like a picture-perfect postcard, with laughter echoing along the shore, sand between our toes, and the gentle caress of ocean waves. As we soaked in the joy of the moment, Linda decided to quench her thirst at a beachside kiosk. However, her excitement turned to mortification as her card was declined. Linda's face flushed with embarrassment as nearby beachgoers turned their heads towards her way. The cashier tried to swipe it again as per her request. Feeling a mixture of frustration and humiliation, Linda quickly retreated and approached Joshua. "Joshua, can I have a sip of your drink?" "Mom, you know you can buy your own, right? There's a stall right there." Linda emptied Joshua's drink, not leaving an ounce of it for him. "I tried to, but my card allegedly declined." "Are you sure everything's alright with your finances, Mom? Maybe we should check it out later." "It's fine. I think the cashier is a new hire and is not familiar with handling cards like mine. I didn't want to waste a breath on him, so I left him." Embarrassment and annoyance etched on Linda's face and caught the attention of a passerby who stared intently, trying to place where he had seen her before. "Wait a minute, you're the one from that video." Linda's eyes widened, her face turning pale as the stranger's words hung in the air. "What video?" "I have no idea what you're talking about. If this is a prank, just go away. I'm not in the mood for it." "Oh, come on! The video of you changing clothes in the bathroom. It's been making the rounds online. Everyone's been talking about it." "Wow, you still got it, Grandma." Linda exchanged nervous glances with Joshua, obviously distressed. "Hey, stop that! That's not funny. My mother would never do anything like that. You must be mistaken." "Well, I'm not trying to cause trouble, and I'm sorry if I got it wrong, but she really looks like the person in the video." "Here, take a look for yourself." Joshua reluctantly glanced at the screen, his brows furrowing as he saw the footage of a person changing clothes in what appeared to be a bathroom. Linda's eyes widened with the realization it truly was her. Joshua's heart sank as he recognized it as well and immediately removed his eyes from the screen. However, determined to protect her from further embarrassment, he decided to act as if he hadn't noticed. "Yeah, sure, the resemblance is uncanny, but it's not her." "Are you sure? It really looks like her." "I'm positive. Trust me, it's just a coincidence." "You should really be careful before you accuse a stranger of that." Joshua glared at the stranger, sending a clear message to back off. The passerby muttered an apology and quickly went his own way. We hurried back to our Airbnb, trying to make sense of the unsettling revelation. Joshua's protective instincts kicked in and decided to investigate further. He meticulously searched the room, inspecting every nook and cranny, hoping to find answers to the disturbing revelation. As he reached the bathroom, Joshua's eyes caught a glimpse of something unusual. A small screw in the corner seemed out of place, and upon closer inspection, he noticed a tiny lens hidden within it. The entire bathroom was riddled with hidden cameras, cleverly disguised to capture every angle, every intimate moment, without their knowledge or consent. "There's a hidden camera there. And also there, someone's been spying on you. I'm pretty sure they also used it to gather sensitive information like your car details. That's why it declined earlier." Linda, already shaken by the recent turn of events, felt a surge of fear coursing through her veins. "Oh my, how would someone do this? My life is officially ruined. I don't deserve this at all. They should have spied on you too." We didn't mind her nonsense and borderline offensive remarks anymore, thinking that it was just due to her panic. So, with a renewed sense of urgency, we quickly gathered her belongings, leaving behind the room that had become a haunting nightmare of the violation she had experienced. Linda's face turned pale with horror as she realized the predicament she had put herself in. She now had to endure the less than comfortable room she had initially booked. Linda couldn't help but cringe at the sight and feel of the subpar space. She tried to walk into the outdated kitchenette, hoping to prepare a simple meal to soothe her frustration. However, that plan was immediately scrapped as she saw the lack of proper utensils and the limited selection of ingredients. She attempted to relax and read a book instead, but the dim lighting and the musty smell of the room only added to her growing frustration. She simply let out a sigh knowing what the family outing had become for her, very far from one would have imagined. Feeling trapped and resentful, Linda had no choice but to retreat into the confines of the room, refusing to venture outside. She was too embarrassed to face the world, given the recent humiliating and creepy incident she now found herself in. Meanwhile, Joshua and I wasted no time preparing for our next adventure while we were still on our vacation. It feels like the whole world is against me. Mom, we have planned and funded these activities in advance. It would be a waste if we didn't go. Besides, you can always come with us if you want to. We never intended to leave you behind. No thanks. Go ahead and have fun without me, your own mother. I guess I'm just here to ruin everything. Joshua was aware of the underlying intent behind Linda's words and chose not to engage in the passive aggressiveness and grill tripping she deployed once again. Instead, he decided to play it off as if he didn't catch the subtext and pretended to misunderstand Linda's words. Thank you, Mom. I knew you'd understand. You too, okay? There are a lot of fun things you can do here. Surely you booked this for a reason. So, Linda stayed behind while Joshua and I ventured into the vibrant world outside. She watched enviously from the window and witnessed Joshua and my carefree spirit. I hope all that time alone in that supper room gave her enough opportunity to reflect on how she traded genuine joy for a momentary sense of entitlement. Linda's days became a monotonous cycle of waiting and yearning for the vacation to end. She had nothing else to do but to argue with the bank's agent regarding the financial fraud on her card. The discomfort of the room coupled with her isolation took a toll on her spirit while Joshua and my adventure had been filled with laughter. Even as one of the most confident individuals, karma had a way to humble my mother-in-law. To Linda, now you know that the grass isn't always greener on the... It was a sunny afternoon when I was gardening. My daughter was playing with her toys in the yard. As I was enjoying planting new flowers, I heard the gate open and it was my mother-in-law instructing the taxi driver to put her belongings inside. There were shopping bags and even a big box. I heaved a deep sigh. She must have gone shopping again. When the driver left, she called me. Agatha, come here, girl. I went immediately to her. Give yourself some worth. Put these bags inside and carry that big box to the rooftop. And please, don't touch any of these. I know you are envious, but have some decency and don't ever try to steal any. I would never steal, she chuckled. Ha! That is something a liar and a desperate girl would say. She rolled her eyes at me. What are you waiting for? Get moving! She instructed me as if I was her maid. But I'm already used to this kind of treatment. Whenever my husband is not around, she always makes me do things for her and always emphasizes that I am jealous of her. Ever since she moved in with us, my life has never been the same. I followed her orders and carried her shopping bags inside, while the big box, I had it all the way to the rooftop. And when I came down, I saw her checking her newly purchased jewelry while talking to someone over the phone. Of course, my son is so gallant and generous. He lets me use his credit card to shop. Yes, clothes, shops, and sunglasses. I even bought a new tanning bed. Yes, our maid helped me with the things. She even carried the box to the third floor. Good thing she is not useless. I have to relax, you know, after a long day of shopping. I'm so pissed by everything that she said. She called me her maid? And what did she say? My husband lent her his card? That is impossible. My husband is so meticulous when it comes to money and overspending. I wonder where she got all his money. Mom, how much does all your shopping cost? I asked in a very polite way. She took it as an insult and moved towards me. How dare you ask me that kind of question? What do you think of me? Cheap and poor? It's none of your business. For all I know, you're just jealous because I have all this wealth to buy whenever I want. And you come from a poor family. You have my son to thank for because without him you would still be in the slums now. She rolled her eyes again and went back to attending her jewelry. Her words have definitely wounded me. It's so easy for her to insult my family, especially me. I have nothing against her, but she is always angry on me. I did not respond when she proceeded to make dinner. Her mistreatment of me has been going on for a year. But I'm afraid to tell my husband about it because I don't want to ruin their relationship. Later that night, we had dinner when my husband opened up about his trip to Singapore. It will be in a remote village. There would be no signal and it would be hard to contact me. But it is only for 2 months. I smiled at him and held his arms. Don't worry, my love. I can assure you that you have nothing to worry about because I will take good care. Son, are you sure you'll be away that long? My mother-in-law interrupted me. That's why my husband's attention was diverted to her. I can sense the excitement in her tone rather than concern, as if she's about to do something. Yes, Mom. I'm sorry if it has to be that long. I really need this trip for my promotion. Lucy's face lit up upon hearing those words. Oh, don't worry. I understand. Of course, you need to work hard and earn money for the family, right? Yes, we will have lots and lots of money. I promise I will take good care of everyone and help Agatha here in the house. Am I right, darling? She smiled. Oh, her fakeness is very evident. I did not bother responding to her. I just focused on my food and helped my daughter with hers. She was delightful during the entire dinner, as if she made a good impression on my husband. I was about to clean the table when she surprisingly offered to do it instead. My darling, don't bother yourself. I will do the dishes tonight. She smiled at me and did a quick side-eye to my husband. I was just staring at her the entire time. And when Jib and our daughter went to our bedroom, my mother-in-law quickly put down the dishes. Bold of you to assume that I will do the dishes. Here, get them out of my sight, dumb girl. Why are you being like this? What? Do you remember your place here? You're just a wife. I am his mother. I am the boss here and you're the maid. So clean this up right now or I will throw all these plates at you. You're being so mean to me. Oh, I'm being mean to you? Oh, you're going to cry now? What are you going to do? Tell my son that I'm being mean, as if he's going to kick me out here? She talks in a mocking and babyish tone. I could not stand her anymore and kept silent. She keeps on laughing as if she won the argument most sensibly. She dropped a plate on her feet and it bled. I was shocked by what she did. One of the maids came to my rescue, but my mother-in-law started crying and shouting in pain. This is not real. She did it on purpose. I tried to help her, but she pushed me away. My husband came rushing towards her. Mom, what happened? Lucy pointed at me. She did this to me. She got angry at me for no reason. This is not true. I did nothing. Don't lie, Agatha. You were angry at me for interrupting you earlier. Why are you being so mean to me? I'm your mother. She cried in the middle of her statement. I couldn't contain myself from being annoyed by her false acts. My husband heaved a sigh. Let's settle this in the morning. First, let's get you treated, Mom. Jet helped and carried her to her room. I trust my husband and I know he will believe me. One of our maids said she would do it, but I insisted. My mother-in-law is so problematic and I can't endure her attitude any longer. On that night, I confessed to my husband what truly happened. He understood me and was thinking of doing something about his mom's behavior towards me. The day of my husband's travel has come. We hugged each other goodbye. He kissed me and my daughter. Bye-bye, Ellie. Be a good girl, okay? Dad is coming home soon. I love you, Dad. Take care of yourself. I hugged my husband again and kissed him on the lips. As we broke our kiss, I saw my mother-in-law glued to her phone. Mom, I'm about to go. My husband's voice brought her back to her senses. She smiled and hugged my husband. Her actions are bizarre, as if she's being cautious and guilty, but I paid it no mind. 5 days have passed since my husband left for Singapore. As usual, my mother-in-law is treating me horribly. She asked me to clean her toilet and even shoved me down the bathroom floor because I accidentally wet her slippers. She gets angry over the tiniest things. I was teaching my daughter the alphabet when I heard a loud scream from my mother-in-law's bedroom. I headed downstairs and I saw her whimpering on the floor. What is wrong? When she heard my voice, she stood up and pointed a finger at me. It's you! I was so confused by what she said. It's you who stole all my jewelry! My mother-in-law hysterically grabbed my hair and pushed me down her bed. Why is she accusing me of something I never did? This is absurd! How dare you steal all my accessories? You're an ungrateful bitch! Bold of you to have the audacity of stealing my things. You're an envious, cunning bitch! Go away! My daughter saw the commotion. I can hear her cry for my name. Lucy clutched my hair and dragged me into every corner of her bedroom. Please! You're hurting me! You deserve that, bitch! Granny! Please let go of mommy! I can hear my daughter pleading for my mercy. Just let it be, Ellie! Your mother is a thief and she deserves to rot in hell. She dragged me out of the bedroom and towards the main door. I can hear Ellie crying and asking her grandmother to stop. Lucy pushed me out of the house and threw the nearest thing she grabbed at me. She hit me in the head with a book, making my forehead bleed. When Ellie saw the blood, she collapsed. I rushed towards her, but my mother-in-law immediately closed the main door and locked me out. I saw her smirk right before it happened. What is wrong with her? I will never let someone like you near my granddaughter. I was starting to panic, knowing that Ellie was scared of blood and she just collapsed, and I can't even trust my mother-in-law to be alone with her. I kept knocking on the door. My heart panicked like crazy. Please open the door. Let me check Ellie, please. I did not steal anything. Why are you doing this to me? I want my daughter back. I kept repeating these words as I knocked several times on the door. I am so worried about my daughter. I cannot contact my husband and there is bleeding in my forehead. I refuse to believe that all these are happening. I gave up when there was still no response from them. My paranoia is increasing. I have been thinking about my daughter and I couldn't stop crying. I decided to stay at my friend's apartment. I don't have anything. I need money or a phone. I am even wearing my house clothes. I left everything at home, even my beloved daughter. I tried to return to the house for 5 days, but my mother-in-law banned me from entering the village. She has already spread the rumor of me stealing all her jewelry. 2 days later, I still got no news from my daughter and husband. I saw a familiar face as I was buying food and trying to regain my energy. Merli, is that you? Madam Agatha? She hugged me as soon as she recognized me. It's one of our maids. I looked at her and asked her about my daughter. How is Ellie? Is she okay? Is she hurt? Merli looked around before talking to me. She moved an inch closer and tried to whisper something. Ellie is okay. In fact, I'm keeping her safe. I really wanted to contact you, but I need to find out. But it doesn't matter now. What matters most is the truth. You have to know her secret. Your mother-in-law is in deep trouble. What do you mean? Madam Lucy has put the house on a lease. She lost a gambling bet. That's where she gets her money to buy all the stuff that she wants. But unfortunately, she lost and accidentally bet the entire house. She was so afraid to tell her son the truth. That's why she wanted you out, because she's scared that you might tell your husband. Please, madam, you have to do something. My heart sank from what I just heard. I'm even more worried for my child. My mother-in-law is so evil. How dare she put the house on the bet? All my husband's hard work will be put to waste because of her stupidity. I held Marley's hand and begged her. I will do something. But you have to help me. Can I trust you? She nodded. Good. I want you to meet me here again tomorrow. Bring my phone and wallet. I will contact Jed and tell him about everything. Are you with me, Marley? Yes, ma'am. I am. And with that, Marley headed out. I just have to wait for her to do the job. The next day, we met again at the store. She handed me my phone and wallet. Don't worry, madam. Ellie is fine. I told her you were well and that you and Mr. Jed will be back home soon. Thank you so much for your kind heart, Marley. We parted ways and I started to contact my husband. After several attempts, and by several it means almost a day of calling and redialing, he finally answered. Hello, my love! Is there something wrong? I can sense the concern in his voice. Good thing that he found an area with a signal. I told him everything. I was crying, retelling him what happened. I cannot believe she did this to you, to us, her family. Don't worry. I'll be back as soon as I can. Her evilness has to stop. We will get Ellie in our house before. He traveled to the central city and took the fastest flight back home. After a day, Jed picked me up from my friend's house. Just as we arrived at our house, we saw Lucy hosting a tea party. The audacity! She still has the guts to host a party while our house is on the brink of getting leased by someone else? We got out of our car and Jed stopped the party immediately. Stop this nonsense! What are you doing, mother? Everyone in the backyard gasped, even my mother-in-law. The look in her eyes shouted surprise and confusion. Ellie saw me and ran to me swiftly. She cried and hugged me tightly. I miss you, my love. I'm so sorry for taking too long. Lucy started to walk closely to my husband. Son, what are you doing here? Shouldn't I be asking you that question? I heard you kicked Agatha out of the house, accused her of stealing, and even deprived her of seeing our child. And I discover even absurd news. You lost the house to a gambling bet and you still have all the confidence to host a party and spend money? Are you really that heartless? I can hear murmurs all across the place. They were looking intently at my mother-in-law, waiting for her response. That is not true. Who told you that? Your wife. She is manipulating you. She is using you against me. That's her true talent, putting words into my mouth. She's an evil little bitch. My husband had enough and slammed the nearest table he reached. The guests shouted in disbelief. Enough of your lies, mother! I know everything. Merle told us the truth and we know she will never betray us. You are my mother and I cannot believe that you can do this to me, to my family. My mother-in-law burst into tears and went to her knees. Son, please forgive me. I just want to maintain my lifestyle. I want to show everyone that I'm wealthy and that you still prioritize me as your mother. I'm jealous of Agatha because she gets to have everything. Please, I will do everything to pay you the house's compensation. Good, because from now on, you'll be paying for the house monthly until the lease has been lifted. You must pay it within 3 months. But I don't have that vast amount of money. You're wealthy, remember? You can afford shoes, bags, clothes, and jewelry. Where are they now? Use them to pay for your debts. Lucy begged once again. Please, I will change. Just don't make me pay. That is something a liar and a desperate girl would say. She cried even louder when she realized when I referenced that line. She was the one who told me that and it backfired on her. One guest stood up. You kept on bragging about the things you own, Lucy, and all this time, you bought them from an illegal business. Another one stood up and spoke her mind. I always thought you were just selfish, but you are really a horrible person. You are really the worst. I hope you find a new set of friends because I don't want to be associated with an abusive person like you. With that, all the guests left. Lucy cried and kept on begging her son, but Jed became heartless towards her. It's over, Mom. You have to learn your lesson. And we also left Lucy alone in the house. We gave her 3 months to settle the house's account. In the end, her selfishness and rudeness were the ones that made her miserable and welcome, everyone. We're gathered here today to celebrate the union of Kate and Mark. The officiant's voice rang out, crisp and warm. The sun was shining, birds were chirping, and I was dressed in an elegant white gown that I'd always envisioned for my wedding day. Mark stood beside me, dapper in his tuxedo. All our friends and family were in attendance. Every detail was perfect, from the floral arrangements to the gentle hum of the string quartet playing in the background. Well, nearly every detail. Enter Margaret. Imagine a woman who carries herself as if she has a crown on her head, but talks like her words are the law of the land. Dressed in an outfit that somehow managed to be both extravagant and woefully outdated, she was a physical embodiment of the term matriarch. The mother of the groom, Mark's mother, and my soon-to-be hell on earth. As we moved on to the reception, she cornered me near the dessert table. "Kate, darling," she began, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. "I must say, your wedding is quaint." "Thank you, Margaret," I replied, putting on my best fake smile. "We're quite happy with how everything turned out." "Of course you are," she snickered, then leaned in as if about to share a secret. "But let's be honest, dear, your dress, though charming, does seem like something straight out of a discount rack." My cheeks flushed. I had spent months searching for that gown. It wasn't from any discount rack. It was the dress of my dreams. Before I could muster up a response, Mark joined us. "Is everything okay here?" he asked, seemingly oblivious to the tension. "Your mother was just sharing her thoughts on my dress," I said, forcing myself to maintain my composure. "Ah, Mom's always had a strong opinion on fashion," Mark chuckled. "You know how she is." "Yeah," I agreed, but my voice betrayed me, revealing a twinge of disappointment and surprise. "I do." The evening continued, and so did Margaret's little stabs. My family didn't escape her criticism either. "Your parents are so down to earth," she observed, a loaded pause hanging between her words. "I'm sure they did their best raising you, given their means." By the time we were ready for our first dance, I had mentally prepared myself to ignore Margaret's barbs. I danced with Mark, my new husband, and tried to focus on the love I knew we shared. "Mom's just being herself, you know," Mark said, his words a quiet echo in my ear over the soft melody of our song. The phrase jarred me. Here we were, dancing as husband and wife, and yet it felt like I was dancing alone, caught in a spotlight of neglect and looming conflicts. If this was how Mark reacted to his mother's blatant disrespect, what else would he stand by and let happen? That thought, clear and unnerving, kept echoing in my mind as we spun around the dance floor. I shook it off, thinking maybe, just maybe, things would get better. Perhaps Margaret was merely caught up in the emotion of the day. Maybe Mark would find the backbone to stand up for me once the euphoria of the wedding had settled. But deep down, a small voice whispered, cautioning me that this was only the beginning of a not-so-fairy tale life. I pushed the thought away as we cut the cake, smiled for photos, and waved goodbye to our guests. We were married now, and I wanted to believe that we could weather any storm together. If only I knew then what I know now. Mark and I had been married for about 6 months when the veneer of marital bliss started to crack in earnest. We lived in my house, a beautiful sprawling home that I had bought with my own money from years of hard work at a top tire company. It had a modern kitchen, a lovely garden, and more than enough space for a family. Mark also worked, but his job at a small, struggling company brought in little income. It was no secret that I was the primary breadwinner, but that never bothered me. What did bother me was the consistent stream of ridicule and condescension that flowed from Margaret every time she crossed our threshold. Margaret had an uncanny knack for timing her visits when Mark was at work, cornering me in my own space. She'd strut in, assess the place with a disdainful glance, and sigh as though the very act of walking into our home was a burden on her soul. "Ah, Kate, your home is ass." "Unique as ever," she'd often say, smiling that shark-like grin of hers. "Thank you, Margaret," I'd reply, biting my tongue. "Would you like some coffee?" "Yes, why not?" she'd say, taking a seat at the kitchen island, her eyes scanning the room for more ammunition. I remember one day vividly. I'd made a pot of freshly brewed coffee and set out a plate of homemade cookies, the kind that took 2 hours to prepare. I thought naively that maybe a little sugar would sweeten her disposition. These cookies are homemade, I offered, handing her a plate. She took one bite and smirked. Ah, I see you still have time for hobbies. Must be nice not having a real family to care for. The dig was unmistakable. The implication that my career, which was providing the roof over our heads, somehow made me less of a woman, less of a prospective mother, hit me like a slap in the face. Before I could react, Mark walked in. He had decided to work from home that day. Hey, how's everyone doing? He asked, oblivious to the tension. Your wife was just offering me some of her lovely cookies, Margaret said, putting down the half-eaten cookie as if it were evidence at a crime scene. Ah, Mom, you know Kate's a great baker, he responded, failing to catch the sarcasm in his mother's voice. You're too kind, I said, my voice laced with an irony I knew only I would appreciate. As the months wore on, every visit from Margaret became an emotional minefield. It wasn't just the derogatory comments about my cooking or my job or my choices in home decor. It was the way Mark stood by, offering silent consent through his inaction. I started to wonder if I'd made a mistake marrying into a family that seemed to think so little of me. The anxiety was like a slow drip, wearing away at the foundations of my self-esteem, my marriage, and my sense of belonging in what was supposed to be my home. But each time I'd pull myself together, I'd remind myself that I was strong, that I had built a life of substance and meaning. And so, in this not-so-happy home, I braced myself for the next chapter, not knowing that a breaking point was closer than I'd ever imagined. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did, in a big, life-altering way. I was settling in for a quiet evening after a grueling day at work when Mark came through the door, visibly agitated. Behind him walked Margaret, carrying suitcases that looked as heavy as the burden she'd been placing on my life. Kate, we need to talk. Mark began, looking more nervous than I'd ever seen him. Look serious. What's going on? I asked, already sensing that this was about more than just an impromptu visit. Mom's lease is up, and she doesn't have the money to renew it. She's going to need to stay with us for a while. My heart sank. The idea of enduring Margaret's insults on an occasional basis was one thing. Living under the same roof felt like a prison sentence. I don't think that's a good idea. Mark, I stated plainly, trying to keep my voice steady despite the surge of emotions. Margaret jumped in before Mark could respond. Well, darling, it's not like I want to impose. But family is family. You do understand what that means, don't you? The words were a slap in the face, a challenge, and a manipulation tactic all rolled into one. I understand the concept of family just fine, Margaret. I also understand the concept of a home, a place where everyone should feel comfortable and respected, I shot back. Mark intervened. Kate, I know this is sudden and inconvenient, but we have to help her. It's temporary. We can set some ground rules to make sure everyone gets along. Ground rules? Like what, Mark? Will she agree to pre-treat me with basic decency? Can that be a rule? My voice trembled with both anger and vulnerability. Of course, Margaret chimed in, her voice dripping with faux sincerity. I'd be more than willing to help around the house, maybe even teach you a thing or two about running a proper home. I was livid. But as I looked at Mark, pleading with him through my eyes to take my side just this once, I realized it was futile. He was not going to stand up to his mother. Not today, probably not ever. Fine, I relented. She can stay, but I want it understood that this is my home, and I will not be disrespected in it. Of course, darling, Margaret said, a victorious glint in her eyes. I wouldn't dream of it. With that, Margaret moved in, and the house seemed to shrink as though it too was bracing for the storm ahead. What was once my sanctuary now felt like a war zone. Every room became a battlefield, every interaction a skirmish. And though I was already emotionally bruised and battered, I couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle had only just begun. In that moment, staring at the suitcases that held Margaret's belongings and the man who had allowed this intrusion, I felt a strange mix of dread and clarity. I knew that a line had been crossed, one that would set into motion events neither Mark nor Margaret could fathom. It was as if a veil had lifted, revealing the grim reality of my marriage and the role Margaret had assumed in it. The unspoken pact of cruelty between mother and son was now more evident than ever. Mark thought this was a temporary arrangement, a small hiccup in the early years of our marriage. Margaret thought she had won a round in whatever sick game she believed we were playing. They both thought wrong. I wasn't just going to be a spectator in my own life anymore. I had no idea how yet, but things were going to change. And when they did, there would be no turning back for any of us. Life with Margaret in the house became an exhausting gauntlet of passive, aggressive comments, undermining and unrelenting tension. Day by day, my personal space shrunk, just like my patience. Mark seemed to exist in a parallel universe, oblivious to the daily emotional abuse his mother rained down upon me. Or maybe he knew but chose not to see it. Honestly, it was hard to tell which would be worse. Margaret took it upon herself to criticize my cooking, rearrange my kitchen cabinets, and even berate the housekeeping staff, all under the guise of helping out. When I spoke to Mark about setting boundaries, he merely brushed it off. Kate, she's old and set in her ways. Let's just try to keep the peace. He'd say prioritizing harmony over justice, mediocrity over integrity. But the straw that broke the camel's back was yet to come. My parents, who had been planning to visit for some time, finally arrived. They were wonderful, supportive people who had always welcomed Mark into our family with open arms, oblivious to the grim details of my married life. We sat down for a family dinner, a lavish spread that I had painstakingly prepared. As we began eating, the conversation was initially light, filled with stories and laughter. That is, until Margaret decided to make her move. My daughter keeps a lovely home. My mom complimented, trying to make polite conversation. Oh, she tries, doesn't she? Margaret replied, her voice as smooth as silk but as cold as ice. Mark shot me a quick look, as if silently pleading for me to keep my cool. And I might have, if not for what came next. I've always believed that smart parenting creates smart children, my dad said, hinting at their pride in my achievements. Margaret chuckled sarcastically. Well, intelligence is a subjective matter, isn't it? Some people may excel in academics and still lack basic common sense. That was it. That was the last straw. Margaret, I said, placing my fork down with a clatter that echoed the seismic shift inside me. You are a guest in my home. You will not insult my parents or demean me any longer. Or what? She smirked, reveling in her perceived power. Or you'll need to find another place to live. And so will your son. Mark's eyes widened. Kate, you can't be serious. She's my mom. And these are my parents, I countered. Who you've allowed to be disrespected in our home. So, you have a choice. Either she goes, or I'm filing for divorce. Mark looked incredulous, then turned to his mother. Mom, apologize. Now, Margaret looked stunned for the first time, her eyes darting between Mark and me. But her arrogance wouldn't let her yield. I will not apologize for speaking the truth. Well, then you've made my decision quite easy. I said, standing up, I'll be contacting my lawyer first thing in the morning. You both should start packing. Mark and Margaret sat there, astonished, as if only now realizing the depths of their mistakes. It was as if a spell had been broken. I saw them for what they were, two people who had underestimated me for the last time. The last straw had been laid, and in its breaking, I found an unexpected strength, a line in the sand that could not be crossed again. I went to bed that night alone, but for the first time in a long time, I felt free, free from the illusions that had bound me, free from the stifling grip of Margaret's malice, and free from the weakness I had mistaken for love and Mark. The coming days would undoubtedly bring challenges, perhaps some that would hurt like hell. But the path was now clear, and on it, I would find my way back to a life of dignity, respect, and the love I deserved. There was no turning back now. The atmosphere in the house was thick with tension, as the morning light broke through the curtains. Mark had barely slept, tossing and turning all night. I knew because I'd been up too, making plans and preparing for the battle that lay ahead. Margaret had disappeared into the guest room, and I could only imagine the words being exchanged between mother and son. I was in my home office, scrolling through emails from work and simultaneously researching divorce lawyers, when Mark finally knocked on the door. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice tinged with a desperation I had never heard before. I motioned for him to sit. "Sure. What's on your mind?" "Kate, let's think this through. Divorce is a drastic step. Can't we go for counseling or something?" I thought about that. "Mark, but counseling works when both parties see a problem. You never saw the problem, even when it was standing right in front of you, insulting your wife." "Look, I'm sorry, okay? My mom can be tough, but she's family. I never thought you'd take it this far. Mark, if you thought belittling your spouse was a game with no consequences, then you're sorely mistaken," I said, feeling my resolve solidify with each word. Just then, Margaret walked in, uninvited as always. "Am I interrupting?" "Of course I am. But who cares, right?" I heard the word divorce and couldn't resist. Mark glanced at his mother and then back at me, as if trying to gauge my reaction. I took a deep breath. "Margaret, your stay here ends today. I'll be filing for divorce, and as the primary earner and owner of this property, I'll be keeping the house. You and Mark will need to find somewhere else to live." Margaret erupted into laughter. "You can't be serious. Kick out your husband and his poor mother. What kind of monster are you?" "A self-respecting one," I shot back. "One who will no longer be a doormat to a narcissistic mother-in-law and a spineless husband." Mark jumped in. "Mom, this is serious. Kate's not bluffing. We've got to find a way to fix this." "Fix this?" Margaret sneered. "Why?" "Because she holds the purse strings. Is that what this marriage is about?" "No," I replied, locking eyes with her. "This marriage was supposed to be about love, trust, and mutual respect, none of which you know anything about. But it's clear that's not what I got." "Okay, let's calm down," Mark interjected. "Mom, you should apologize to Kate." "And Kate, can we go for marriage counseling?" "No!" "Mark, an apology now is too little, too late," I said firmly. "I'll be contacting my attorney today. And as for you," I turned to Margaret, "I suggest you start packing." Both Mark and Margaret looked at each other, then at me, finally grasping the gravity of the situation. It was as if they'd both been actors in a play, only to find out the script had been rewritten without their knowledge. "I didn't want it to come to this," I said softly, my voice tinged with sadness for what could have been. "But you both pushed me here. For once, you'll have to deal with the consequences of your actions." And with that, I returned to my desk, leaving them to absorb the weight of my words. As I sat back down, I felt a strange mix of emotions. It was a cocktail of sadness for the love lost, relief for the bullet dodged, and a newfound empowerment. In setting myself free from the shackles of their manipulation, I had turned the tables in the most unexpected yet satisfying way. And as I dialed the number of the divorce lawyer, I knew that this was not the end, but a new beginning. A rebirth. And God, was it liberating? The divorce proceedings were neither quick nor easy, but every grueling moment made the taste of impending freedom that much sweeter. Margaret and Mark had initially resisted resorting to manipulative tactics in a desperate attempt to sway public opinion and court sentiment. But the truth was, my greatest ally, and their charade unraveled like a poorly woven tapestry. Sitting in my attorney's office one afternoon, we received a call that would become the final nail in the coffin for Mark and Margaret's hopes. "It's settled then," my lawyer said, hanging up the phone. "You'll keep the house and there will be no alimony. They've dropped their ridiculous countersuit as well." I felt like a massive weight had lifted off my shoulders. "Thank you, Stephen. You've been incredible through this whole mess." "It's my job, Kate. But I must say you've handled this with remarkable poise." On the day the divorce was finalized, I walked out of the courthouse with mixed emotions. Part of me mourned the death of a dream, the beautiful life Mark and I had planned but never realized. But a bigger part celebrated the birth of a new journey, one where I was the master of my destiny. Coming home to an empty house should have felt lonely, but instead it felt peaceful. As I stepped inside, I looked around the space that was now entirely mine, untainted by toxic energy or haunting memories. My phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was a message from my mom. "How did it go, honey? Are you okay?" I smiled as I replied, "I'm more than okay, Mom. I'm free." Later, as I was unpacking some of the boxes I'd stored away during the legal turmoil, there was a knock at the door. It was Mark. He looked defeated. A shell of the man I had once loved. "Can I come in?" he asked cautiously. "Why are you here, Mark?" "I just wanted to see if you're all right." "All right. Now you care?" I couldn't help but let the bitterness seep into my words. "I messed up, Kate. I know I can't change the past, but I wish you all the happiness in the world. Your words mean little now, but thanks for the belated sentiment," I replied, closing the door on both Mark and that chapter of my life. As I returned to my unpacking, I found an old journal from my college days. Flipping through it, I came across a quote I'd written down during a philosophy class. "Freedom is not the absence of commitments, but the ability to choose and commit myself to what is best for me." I closed the journal, my eyes welling up with tears of gratitude. I was finally free. Free to make my own choices. Free to live my life on my terms. And most importantly, free from the chains that had bound me for so long. I didn't just survive. I had emerged from the flames reborn, tempered like steel through fire. And though the path ahead was uncertain, for the first time in years, I felt truly alive, eager to explore the boundless possibilities that stretched out before me. So here I am, finally breathing without the crushing weight of others' expectations and manipulations. I've earned my freedom, and I'll be damned if I ever let anyone take it away from me again. And as for Mark and Margaret, last I heard, they were living in a small apartment, still entangled in their unhealthy symbiosis. I harbor no illusions that they've changed, but I harbor no grudges either. They're simply chapters in my past, lessons in a story that's still being written. A story that is now unequivocally mine.